Have you ever wondered what the secret ingredient is? You know, the thing that really powers our entire modern world? Well, it's not just technology, and it's not just hard work. Today, we're going to break down one of the most fundamental concepts in all of economics, capital. Let's jump right in.
So let's start with the big question, right? We hear about GDP, stock markets, and employment numbers all the time. But what is the fundamental force that actually pushes economic progress forward? Well, the answer, as we're about to see, has everything to do with how a society creates and, more importantly, uses capital.
Okay, to really get a grip on this, we first need to be crystal clear about what we mean when we say capital. It's a word that gets thrown around constantly, but for an economist, it has a really specific and honestly fascinating meaning that goes way beyond just having money in the bank.
And here it is, the classic definition. Capital is a produced means of production. So what on earth does that actually mean? Simply put, it means capital isn't something we just find lying around in nature, like land or oil. It's something that we, as people, have already made. Think a hammer, a laptop, a whole factory, specifically to help us produce even more stuff. This little definition is the starting point for so many huge economic debates, but at its heart, it's about a tool that's used to make more tools.
And this brings us to a really key distinction. All capital is wealth, but not all wealth is capital. Picture this, a pile of bricks just sitting in a backyard. That's wealth. But the second a builder picks up those bricks and starts building a new office with them, boom, they become capital. It's the active use in production that completely changes the game.
I love this way of thinking about it. Imagine a giant reservoir full of water. That massive body of water itself is the stock. That's your capital. But the river that's constantly flowing out of it, the part that's generating power and watering crops downstream, that is the flow. That's the income, the value that your capital generates over time. One's a snapshot, the other's the ongoing movie.
All right, so now that we've got the basic idea down, let's dig a little deeper. Because capital isn't just one monolithic thing. It actually comes in a whole bunch of different flavors, and each one plays a pretty unique role in the economy.
Okay, first up, we've got fixed versus circulating capital. Let's think about a baker. Her big fancy oven, that's fixed capital. It's durable, it sticks around, and she can use it to bake thousands and thousands of loaves of bread. But the flour, the yeast, the power she uses for each batch, that's circulating capital. It gets completely used up in one single act of production.
Then you have the difference between real and human capital. Real capital is all the physical stuff you can actually touch. The buildings, the machines, the roads. But human capital, that might be even more important. It's the collected knowledge, the skills, and the health of the people doing the work. It's built up through things like education and job training, and it's what makes us all more productive.
We also have to talk about tangible versus intangible capital. A factory is tangible. You can walk up and kick the walls. But what about the patent for the special process that happens inside that factory? Or the company's famous brand name that everyone trusts? That's intangible capital. You can't physically hold it in your hands, but its value for production can be absolutely massive. This table is great because it pulls all of this together. It summarizes the types we've just covered, and you'll see it adds a couple more key categories. Individual capital, which is just privately owned stuff, and social capital. Think public roads, bridges, the power grid, things that belong to all of society and help the entire economy run more smoothly.
So we know what capital is, and we know all the different forms it can take. The next logical question is, how do we get more of it? Well, that process has a name. It's called capital formation, but you probably know it by a much simpler name, investment.
This, right here, is the fundamental trade-off at the very heart of economic progress. It's so important. To build for the future, you have to consume less today. It's just like a farmer who saves some of her harvest to use as seed for next year's crop instead of just eating it all right now. That sacrifice, that act of saving, is the literal seed of all future growth.
And the payoff for making that sacrifice, it's huge. More capital, whether that's a new robot on a factory floor or a society-wide investment in better education, lets us produce more and do it better and faster. This huge boost in efficiency is what fuels overall economic growth, which in turn creates new jobs and new opportunities. It's this beautiful, virtuous cycle that can lift up an entire society.
Okay, so how does this really work in the real world? It's not magic, not at all. It's actually a pretty clear process. Let's walk through the three-step recipe that turns a single person's decision not to spend their money into a brand new factory or a piece of high-tech machinery. The whole thing unfolds in three main stages. It all kicks off with savings.
Those savings then have to be gathered together or mobilized, and finally, they're put to work as a real investment. Let's break down each step real quick.
So step 1 is savings. This starts with us, with individuals and companies. And it really just boils down to 2 things. First, you need the ability to save. Actually earning more than you need to spend just to get by. And second, you need the willingness to save, which really comes from having a forward-looking mindset and caring about your future.
Right, but savings stuffed under a mattress don't build an economy, do they? That's where step 2, mobilization, becomes so incredibly important. This is the crucial job that banks, investment funds, and the whole financial system do. They collect all those little individual pools of savings from all over the place and channel them towards people and businesses who can actually use them to build something.
And that brings us to the final step, investment. This is where the money meets the real world. This is where entrepreneurs step in, take those mobilized savings, accept the risk, and use that money to buy the machines, build the factories, and develop the software that becomes brand new, productive capital. And there you have it. The journey is complete.
So what's the big takeaway here? The crucial point is that this giant economy-wide process, this engine of growth, it all starts with a very small, very personal decision. Your decision to save. Your decision to plan for the future, to maybe invest in your own skills. These individual choices, when you multiply them by millions of people, literally become the engine of progress for everyone.
And that really brings us to our final thought. Every single time you save $1 instead of spending it, you're basically casting a vote for the future. You're providing one tiny little brick for the foundation of the world of tomorrow. So the question I want to leave you with is, what kind of world are you helping to build?